Shalom. I have noticed that many of us are going through tough times. Some of us are going through seasons of homelessness, physical illness, rocky marriages, heartbreaks, divorce, breakups, persecution over the belief, fear over the current world events, and more. I wanted to make this video to remind everyone, and remind myself as well, that the trials we are enduring, I believe, had to be approved by Elohim in order for it to have begun in our lives. As chaotic as our trials and hardships might seem, I believe it is all planned and controlled. I believe the enemy had to ask Elohim for permission in order to come after us. I wanted to quote this verse: "No trial has overtaken you, except such as is common to man. And Elohim is trustworthy, who shall not allow you to be tried beyond what you are able, but with the trial shall also make the way of escape, enabling you to bear it." I truly believe that whatever you're going through has been thoroughly considered by Elohim. I believe he took into consideration everything about you before allowing this trial to begin. I believe that he sees the end from the beginning and sees that this will refine you further. I believe that in many cases, he allows these things to come upon us so that we can help someone else in the future, or just so that we can draw closer to him. It's easy to not draw close to him when all is going great, but when things are starting to go bad is when I believe we as humans seek him the most. If he allowed it, then we know it's for a beautiful, perfect, and good reason, for our benefit. I wanted to read some of the book of Job to sort of illustrate what I imagine the enemy doing in order to have authority to come after us. I believe even the enemy must get permission and authorization from Elohim before he can act. We know that he is the accuser of the brethren, and we know he is like a roaring lion, seeking whom he can devour. When I say the enemy, I personally do not imagine just one figure, but rather countless enemies, and possibly enemies that grew up with us and know us personally. They know exactly how to strike in a way that's subtle enough for you to believe that it's not a spiritual attack, but rather just another random event that happened in this world. However, I do not believe this is the case. I believe all that happens is completely controlled, approved, or denied. So, let's get into the scriptures. There was a man in the land of Uz, whose name was Ayub, and that man was perfect and straight, and one who feared Elohim and turned aside from evil. And 7 sons and 3 daughters were born to him, and his possessions were 7,000 sheep, and 3,000 camels, and 500 yoke of oxen, and 500 female donkeys, and a very large body of servants, so that this man was the greatest of all the people of the east. And his sons went and had a feast in the house of each on his day, and sent and invited their 3 sisters to eat and drink with them. And it came to be, when the days of feasting had gone round, that Ayub would send and set them apart, and he would rise early in the morning and offer ascending offerings, the number of them all. For Ayub said,
"It might be that my sons have sinned and cursed Elohim in their hearts."
This Ayub always did. And the day came to be that the sons of Elohim came to present themselves before Yahuah, and Shaitan also came among them. And Yahuah said to Shaitan, "From where do you come?" And Shaitan answered Yahuah and said,
"From diligently searching in the earth, and from walking up and down in it."
And Yahuah said to Shaitan,
"Have you considered my servant Ayub, that there is none like him on the earth, a perfect and straight man, one who fears Elohim and turns aside from evil?"
And Shaitan answered Yahuah and said,
"Is Ayub fearing Elohim for naught? Have you not made a hedge around him, and around his household, and around all that he has on every side? You have Baruch the work of his hands, and his possessions have increased in the land. But stretch out your hand, please, and strike all that he has, if he would not curse you to your face."
And Yahuah said to Shaitan,
"See, all that he has is in your hand. Only do not lay a hand on himself."
And Shaitan went out from the presence of Yahuah. And the day came to be when his sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in the house of their brother, the firstborn. And a messenger came to Ayub and said,
"The oxen were plowing, and the donkeys feeding alongside them, when Shabbat fell upon them and took them away. And they struck the servants with the edge of the sword, and I alone have escaped to inform you."
While he was still speaking, another also came and said,
"The fire of Elohim fell from the Shamim and burned up the sheep and the servants and consumed them. And I alone have escaped to inform you.
While he was still speaking, another also came and said,
The Kashdim formed 3 bands and made a raid on the camels and took them away. They struck the servants with the edge of the sword, and I alone have escaped to inform you.
While he was still speaking, another also came and said,
Your sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in the house of their brother, the firstborn. And see, a great wind came from the wilderness and struck the 4 corners of the house. And it fell on the young men. They are dead. And I alone have escaped to inform you.
Then Ayub rose up and tore his robe, and shaved his head, and fell to the ground and did obeisance. And he said,
Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I return there. Yahuah has given and Yahuah has taken away. Baruch be the name of Yahuah.
In all this, Ayub did not sin, nor ascribe wrongdoing unto Elohim. Again, the day came to be that the sons of Elohim came to present themselves before Yahuah, and Shaitan also came among them to present himself before Yahuah. And Yahuah said to Shaitan,
From where do you come?
and Shaitan answered Yahuah and said,
From diligently searching in the earth and from walking up and down in it.
And Yahuah said to Shaitan,
Have you considered my servant Ayub, that there is none like him on the earth? A perfect and straight man, one who fears Elohim and turns aside from evil? And still, he holds fast to his integrity, although you incited me against him to destroy him without cause.
And Shaitan answered Yahuah and said,
Skin for skin, and all that a man has he would give for his life. But stretch out your hand, please, and strike his bone and his flesh, if he would not curse you to your face.
And Yahuah said to Shaitan,
See, he is in your hand. Only spare his life.
And Shaitan went out from the presence of Yahuah, and struck Ayub with loathsome sores, from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head. And he took a potsherd with which to scrape himself while he sat in the midst of the ashes. And Yahuah turned the captivity of Ayub when he prayed for his friends. And Yahuah gave Ayub twice as much as he had before. And all his brothers, and all his sisters, and all those who had been his friends before, came to him, and ate food with him in his house. And they sympathized with him, and comforted him for all the evil that Yahuah had brought upon him. And they each gave him a kashita, and each one a ring of gold. And Yahuah Baruch the latter days of Ayub more than his beginning, for he had 14,000 sheep, and 6,000 camels, and 1,000 yoke of oxen, and 1,000 female donkeys. And he had 7 sons and 3 daughters. And he called the name of the first Yamima, and the name of the second Katsia, and the name of the third Karan Hafuk. And in all the land were found no women so beautiful as the daughters of Ayub, and their father gave them an inheritance among their brothers. And after this, Ayub lived 140 years, and saw his children and grandchildren for 4 generations. And Ayub died, old and satisfied with days. As we see, Ayub lost almost everything. I could not cover all 42 chapters, but I suggest everyone read it for themselves to get the fullness of this beautiful book. Ayub was a righteous and perfect man, yet was given over to a captivity of trials and hardships. With endurance he endured till the end, and Yahuah turned the captivity, and Baruch Ayub with more than he had originally. All of it was in Yahuah's control. The enemy could do nothing without being given the authority to do so. Even when Yahuah gave the enemy authority, Yahuah made it clear he couldn't harm Ayub or do more to him than what he was granted. I believe the same is for us and what we are going through. Let us continue enduring with the cup and trial we have been given. In the end, the spiritual captivity will be lifted, and we will be Baruch more than we ever have been. We will also be with Mashiach and our Father in the kingdom for eternity, Yahuah willing. So let's continue pressing on towards the prize regardless of what the enemy throws at us. Let us always remember, whatever we endure is for our benefit, our growth, our refinement, and to mold us closer and closer to what Yahuah intended us to be. There is a perfect version of you that I believe Yahuah envisioned when he formed you in your mother's womb. I believe Yahuah is forming us and refining us to ensure we are exactly what He intended while creating and thinking of us. So let's take one day at a time and remember that we are not perfected yet. However, we will be if we endure till the end, abiding in Mashiach, Yahusha, staying in His word, and abiding in Elohim's love. And let us obey the Torah, the law that Yahuah the Father gave through Moses. It's not done away with. Let's obey the best we can, not to save ourselves, but because He saved us. And if we love Him, then we will keep His commandments. And if we know Him, then we will guard His commandments.
Do not think that I came to destroy the Torah or the prophets. I did not come to destroy, but to complete. And then I shall declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you who work lawlessness. If you love me, you shall guard my commands. And by this we know that we know Him, if we guard His commands. What then shall we say? Is the Torah sin? Let it not be. However, I did not know sin except through the Torah. For also the covetousness I knew not, if the Torah had not said, you shall not covet. There is then now no condemnation to those who are in Mashiach, Yahusha, who do not walk according to the flesh, but according to the Ruach. For the mind of the flesh is death, but the mind of the Ruach is life and shalom.
Because the mind of the flesh is enmity towards Elohim, for it does not subject itself to the Torah of Elohim, neither indeed is it able.
Only through Yahusha can we make it. If we truly believe on Yahusha, then we will strive to obey. True belief strives to obey. For as the body without the Ruach is dead, so also the belief is dead without the works. Shalom.